Right, it all really began for me when I was about 5 or 6 years old, and my older brother had some John Barry records, movie records from films, the Bond films like Goldfinger and You Only Live Twice and The Knack, King Rat and things like that. And when everybody had gone to bed at night, I used to sit and listen to the arrangements, and I could see colours on the ceiling, in my mind anyway, and that's where it all began, really. Then, later on, around about 17, 18, 19, I started to get interested in actually musical instruments. And I bought a guitar and started to kind of learn the usual stuff, learning about chords and melodies and things like that. And later on, when I got to Polytechnic, I began to have I came across a classical guitar player, gave me some lessons, and even later still, I got into jazz guitar and all the complex chords and arrangements that go with that. A little bit later, between the kind of like the classical and the jazz didn't come till later, I went to London in about 81, and we tried to get a band going and do all those kind of things you do around in your 20s. And I thought I was reasonably good enough to be able to kind of go and try and get some sessions. So, feeling all big and brave, I walked into Advision Studios in Soho and tried to get myself on the roster for session guitarists. And the same thing with Air Studios. Paul McCartney was big at the time, and I've always been a big hero, and I did the same thing there as well. Whilst working in London, we ran into kind of a one-time big folk guitarist called Jonathan Kelly, and I roaded for him for a few nights and kind of like held his guitar and carried his guitar around, and had some really interesting conversations on songwriting. Whilst also around about that time, I tied up with one of the guitarists from Gonzales. I actually met him at a concert in Manchester. He was playing at a concert at the Free Trade Hall in Manchester, and the band was Gonzales. And he came out into the audience, and I got talking to him, and he said, "Come down to London, and when you get down to London, we'll meet up." And we got talking, and we got involved with kind of studio work for publishers, and that guy was called Steve Waller, and it was really interesting because we met lots of session musicians, keyboard players, bass players, and engineers as well, really good engineers who really knew what they were doing. After a few years in London, I decided to come back to Manchester, and it was then we kind of run into Barry again, one of my old friends, and he was just out of a band. I was back from London, and we decided to get together and do some recording work together. The whole home recording revolution was just beginning to start at that point, and the rest is history.